exists inherently as such. It's just labeled based on certain situations. So therefore, since it's just labeled, it is not as real as it seems. So the anger, this exaggerated emotion, since I'm not exaggerating what's happening, no exaggerated emotion can arise. There's just no way you can be angry. Okay? So that's the first step. And when that works, you realize, wow, this works. I want to do this again. Right?
Insult me.
Pardon? Insult me. Come on. Pretend you're throwing me off a cliff. Pretend, of course. Right? I mean, no, I'm kidding. But fear is also really interesting. In this, fear serves a purpose, of course, in terms of there's a rational fears. And actually, Buddhism doesn't really have a problem with fear as such anyway, so much. It doesn't mention it. But in the 21st century, we experience a lot of irrational fear. New type of fears. Not fear of the tiger that's coming to eat us. No, it's like fear of not getting the...
Anxieties.
Yeah, anxiety. Anxiety, I think, is just a form of fear that's more continuous. It's just ever present. Not just suddenly, but like... all the time, right? This fear of the future, fear of this, fear of the unknown, the future. It's like, of course, the future is unknown, anything can happen, but of all the different scenarios that can happen, only one is going to happen, but we're fearful of all of them, right? I could die of a rocket, I could die of cancer, I could die of natural death, I could die, so I'm scared of all of them, okay? Only one is going to happen. I could lose my house through fire, through someone taking it away, and I'm scared of all of them. So basically, the future, once it's there, I'll deal with it. Why I deal with it now? Try not to generate the causes and conditions for that to happen. That's all you can do, right? Don't let a candle burn when you go to your lat, travel to a lat. Switch off the candle. Try whatever you can do to avoid the causes and conditions. And then if it still happens, well, you deal with it when it happens. Right? And we've always been all right. Right? We always worry. And then when it happens, we're all right anyway. Then it comes and it goes. Right? We get sick. We get better. Our partner leaves us. Okay, we're miserable, cry for a few days, and then slowly wears off, and we find a new partner. We feel like I can never be happy, but I'm happy again. Right? My mind tells me, oh, I can never be happy again. And then slowly I get happy again. Until the next attachment. So, alright, that's just life. So we'll continue. We'll be alright. We've been okay so far. So like to have that self-confidence. My mind is incredible. We've got this incredible mind. We just need to get to know it better. And find this incredible source within our own mind. We don't need much else. We spoke about it yesterday. We think pleasure comes from external objects. But that's just an illusion. We feel pleasure when we meet another person. We feel good, right? We meet another person and we feel good. But this feeling is inside. And now we project pleasure onto the other person. The pleasure was here. It was experienced by our own mind. But we believe the pleasure comes from the person. So I have to be with this person to have the pleasure. But it shows your mind can feel the pleasure. It can feel the pleasure, right? So therefore, it's really in your mind already. Feeling good about yourself, for instance, with the other person. Well, that's just, the other person is just a trigger in that moment. And the thing is, it doesn't always trigger that in you anyway. So to find that within yourself, all our happiness lies within ourselves. The external objects, no, they just give us a small moment of relief from something worse, and that's it. That's not real happiness. So to find the happiness from within, and the way to do so, this is where compassion comes in. So we talked about the self. Sometimes people say like, well, Buddhism is all about not being so selfish, and then you talk about the self all the time. Right? It's true. It's true. And honestly, it's initially when you start practicing it, you think about the self so much then actually you can become a little bit more selfish, right? You're trying to suppress the self, because our selfishness wants us now to be not selfish, and we want it right away. So we suppress the self, and it comes up stronger, and it has the opposite effect. But it's like homeopathic medicine, you know. First you take it, and the symptoms grow stronger before you get better. So a lot of kind of medicines that make the symptoms stronger at first. It's just part of the process. You may fall into nihilism and kind of deny yourself, like deny too much, and then the self comes through again. You suppress. It's just all about middle way, balance. But sometimes to find the middle way, you need to go into both extremes. When you're on a balancing beam, you know what a balancing beam is? Yeah. So when you're on that beam and you fall too much to this side, you need a moment to go to the other extreme to find the balance. So our lives are extremes, right? Sometimes we need to go to a slight other extreme before we find the middle way. But of course, what's so important as part of Buddhism is not just the wing of compassion, no, the wing of wisdom, of understanding, but also love and compassion. So without mentioning those, it will be incomplete. If we really understand that our suffering, our negative behavior, our anger, our envy, our attachment come from misperception, okay? Then there's an understanding. Like my stepbrother, he's not a Buddhist. He doesn't like Buddhism. I think I mentioned that before, but not yesterday in a different context. He's not Buddhist. If I say Buddhism, he rolls his eyes. If I say mind or reincarnation, he turns around and he goes. Yeah. So really he's not into anything spiritual whatsoever. And one time he was analyzing someone who acted really terribly. And he analyzed, like really vicious, analyzed the behavior of this person, a lady actually, a woman, and she was keeping his dad from being with his kids. So it's pretty serious. Like she didn't want his father to be with his kids since they were little. That's pretty painful. That's big. So he hasn't seen his father for like 15, 20 years now. Hasn't seen the father lives nearby, but he's never seen his grandchildren even. Okay, so it's pretty serious. And he went through it, and he described her, and he tried to meet with her, but she didn't want to. He's always tried to kind of negotiate. It never worked out. But he really got her, and he talked about her, why she did this, and then in the end, his conclusion was, it shows there are no bad people, only stupid people. And I was like, wow. Like he meant like stupid, no, not in a negative way. I mean like not understanding what's best for them, just misapprehending things. And I thought, wow, if you knew how profound that was, but I didn't tell him. I know he doesn't like Buddhism, so I didn't have to tell him. But I was so proud of him. I was like, yeah, it's so true. There are no evil people. There are no angry, horribly, naturally people. And like, it's not like within them. It is just this state of mind that they're in because of the misperception. Once it's there, as misapprehension is there, you cannot stop it. It will sooner or later come. You may suppress it, right? You may weaken it for a while through practice of patience, through practice, but none of it is a long-term solution. Sooner or later it comes back, which is why sooner or later we need to get at this misapprehension of reality. But when you see other people, which people make us angry? People who are angry make us angry. People who are selfish. And selfish does not, the word selfish, or the mind that is the selfish mind, is not the mind that misapprehends reality. The mind that misapprehends the existence of the I and other phenomena, that gives rise to an exaggerated sense of self-importance, an exaggerated sense I'm more important, my happiness is more important. If really what you perceive is really just me, I'm more, if you misapprehend, as in like others, they're not really there, I'm really there, right? If you have that sense, others are kind of less important. If you really believe that others are less important because of how it appears to the mind, and you believe I'm more important, my happiness is more important, you can't help it. The rest is going to happen from there on. And that is called selfishness. If you think I'm more important. But that comes from that misapprehension. So we get so angry with people because they're selfish, because we think they're just selfish, that's it. But if we understand from our own experience that it's just a misperception, then that hatred is much harder. It's like they can't help it. It's like they can't help it. In that sense, it's almost like they're under the control of that misapprehension. And then having love and compassion for them becomes much easier. Right? I mean, in some scriptures it talks about, for instance, if it's like someone is your mother, and your mother has a mental disease and she does crazy things, can we really be angry with her? It's the disease, it's like the disease driving her, so she can't help it. If we believe she's doing it on purpose and there's something intentional there, but we're not intentionally misapprehending things. We can't help it, it's there, that misapprehension is there. So then, to not just love other people, like wishing for them to be happy and wishing for them to have happiness when they're all okay, when they don't behave in a nasty way, it's easy to have love and compassion for a friendly person. It is even easy to have love and compassion for someone who's neither unfriendly nor friendly. It's hard to have love and compassion for someone who's selfish, for someone who's angry, for someone who's very attached. Attached may be easier. You can see how little freedom they have. But if that attachment leads to viciousness and selfish action and putting themselves before others, then it becomes harder. But once you know from your own experience the root cause of our disease. So we all have a mental disease. When we talk about mental disease, we take ordinary people like us, and then if in comparison to what the other person does is extreme, we say mental disease. But actually in comparison to a Buddha, we're all mentally ill, right? So we all suffer from the same hallucinations. We're also hallucinating an I, not the conventional I. We're hallucinating a concrete I and concrete others, and therefore a concrete sense of I'm more important, etc. And the rest just flows on its own. And we understand that when we meet other people who are really selfish. I mean, you will never meet a selfish person who's very happy. Never. Never. The more selfish someone is, the more anxiety they have, the more insecure they feel, the more distracted their mind is, they have less peace, they need to distract themselves all the time, just not to face that because it's painful. Being selfish, that strong sense, I need to get this for me, it's like a drive, you cannot, it's really difficult, right? It's like we're like addicts. We are addicted to our own self. We're like addicts. You need to satisfy, you need to gratify the I all the time. It's like an addiction. And we're all aware of how difficult addictions are. We're addicted to my reputation, my well-being, my this, my that, my this. It's constantly there. And sooner or later it will come up. Okay? So gratification. If you're alone too long, you feel like, oh my God, other people, I need to be good. Other people, I'm still there. But there's almost a fear of not being seen, etc. because of the sense of something solidly there. So there's a lot of pain. All the pain in our life comes from that. And when we really recognize it, compassion for others can actually take place. If we understand our symptoms and our cause of the disease, look around. And we've had the openness of mind for whatever causes and conditions were responsible for that, to look into it, to learn about it. We don't get raised in school. It's not like our kindergarten teacher or parents or anyone talks about this. No one does. Usually no one does. And we are so fortunate. And if you practice and you find there's, as a result of this practice, you may find that, oh my God, I'm a little happier. Don't expect it after a day or two. It needs to be really a constant practicing. But if after a year or two, you look back and you go, wow, my life has become better. Oh, that worry I used to have, that's gone. Where did that go? Oh my God, it worked. And then you want to do more. And then when you look at others who haven't found that yet, there's a sense of, oh, I'm so sorry, right? They haven't found that yet. They're every day going to work, they hate their job, but they're addicted to their money and possibly to rising in their job, because the only way in which they can feel good about themselves is to be like better than everyone else and being number one. But how much worry is there? You're number one. For how long? You have to be on your toes and have to work so hard. Oh my God, what a stressful life. No time to relax. How many people want to be number one, right? We think famous people, oh, so nice. Everyone likes them. Everyone strokes their ego. Yeah, it makes you feel good if everyone looks at you and think you're so wonderful. No one is doing you a favor with that. They put you up there and they think you're so wonderful. Because the gap between reality and that illusion we live in, everyone thinks you're so great and so wonderful. But you're not. Maybe just a good singer or a good actor, right? So people act to you differently. So your sense of reality, you're moving further. Unless you stay grounded with your 2 feet on the ground. But a lot of people can't do it. And then the confusion between like what they perceive and what other people perceive. And first, when it wears off, like the adoration, it's like you don't feel about that, and that you feel like this conflict, and people just want to be around you because you're famous. So no one really sees you for who you are. So you're attached to the fame. But then again, and then what else? You're gonna maybe take drugs to relieve the pain, the loneliness. I mean, it's terrible. And from the outside, oh, if I were Angelina Jolie, how nice. I don't know, right? So the thing is, therefore, if you look around, so much suffering around us, so much suffering. And so then, just as I want to be happy, and my happiness is important, it is important, but not more important than the happiness of others. And then we look at others and see what they're going through. And a lot of it is so unnecessary, but if you can't see it, you can't see it. So we cannot preach to others. That's not a good idea. If people ask us, okay. The only way we can help others to find a direction, like the right direction, is through our own example. That's why we really benefit others if we live this idea, if we reduce our selfishness through practicing this, and if we become less selfish, we're a good example to others. People can learn from our own example. But on top of that, if we're asked to talk about it, all right, we can talk about it, but not everyone is open to it. It was really interesting. When I first met the Dharma, I was like, wow, I need to tell everyone about this. This is great. So I remember telling my best friend, I went home for the first time, just before I became a nun. I went home briefly, and I told my best friend, and I was like talking, and she's like, I don't agree with any of what you're saying. I was like, what? This is so great. Until I realized it's actually just very few people are open to this. It's just you need to have some interest. Some people, just not their cup of tea. Eventually, they may, but not at this point. And so you cannot preach it. That's why Buddhism doesn't preach. Okay, Judaism is the same, so you don't try to convert people. No. You try to convert? No. Some not. Some believe your mother.
If you are Jew, maybe yes.
Only
if you are mother religion.
It's part of the. You have to do it. You have to
promote it.
Tell people about God.
All right. Anyway, we can discuss that another time. sorry.
It's debatable.
It's debatable. We agree it's debatable. Okay. I think it's basically some do, some don't. But in Buddhism, it's like a no, don't do it. I'm sure there are some Buddhists who won't preach about it, but in actuality, it's not a good idea unless you're asked, because it's not. It could actually be potentially a problem to some. So. Anyway, no one needs to become Buddhist. It's not necessary. When you're ready, when you have all the causes and conditions, you become a Buddhist naturally. So it's not about signing up or anything. It's about turning towards the Dharma to find solution, turning towards Buddhism or some of the ideas to finding solutions to your problem. That's what is called refuge. Taking refuge. Taking refuge is a funny word. Actually, taking refuge doesn't literally mean that. It means when you face life, you find problems. When there are problems, you look for the Dharma, in the Dharma for solutions. Okay, I'm angry right now. I don't want to be angry. What can I do? What is the solution? What are the techniques that the Buddha set forth? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. If you do that, in that moment, you've relied on the Dharma. In that moment, you took refuge. And when you do that, that's the definition of being Buddhist. So it's not like signing up. You could be a Buddhist for a few minutes and then not. Right? That's it. So there's no, it's just a label. It's just a label. From a Buddhist point of view, there's not like your mother is Jewish or you get baptized or any of that sort. It's really just when you turn towards the Dharma, when you seek, I mean, you may still, when we have a problem, what do? When we have a problem, we take refuge in chocolate. It means we take a piece of chocolate. We take refuge in a friend. We call up a friend and try to seek the solution of the problem, like overcoming that problem by talking to our friend. That's taking refuge in a friend. Or watching a movie or taking a sleeping pill. We can do all that, but if at the same time we also look at the solutions in Buddhism while eating a chocolate, right? So then, in that moment, you've taken refuge. In that moment, you're a Buddhist. Even the next situation, you go, nah, no, I'm not interested. This time, I'll just watch the movie. In that moment, you're not Buddhist. That's really, because that's the definition. When you take refuge in Buddha, the Buddha Dharma Sangha, which means Buddha is the person who taught the Dharma, then the Dharma, and then those who practice it. So you take refuge in the sense directly in the Dharma and indirectly, therefore, in the Buddha. So, okay, what did the Buddha say? Because the teachings, the Dharma, was given by the Buddha. And then what do other people say about it who also practice it? But really you take refuge in the Dharma. That's what it means, right? So it's just a word. Who cares Buddhist, not Buddhist? It's not like there's like a tattoo. Now you're Buddhist, you can't get out of it because it's a tattoo. You can't get it off your forehead. It's not like that. It's just another label giving on the basis of turning towards the Dharma when you have a problem, when you face difficulties, or even when you don't face difficulties. In your everyday life, integrate the ideas, bring them into your life. That's it. Okay? Yes?
That happens only when you know you're suffering and you are seeking for a solution.
Yes?
Most of the people doesn't know. They live a happy life and they don't know that they are suffering. It's not my
not my business. I don't need to concern myself with this, you're saying?
Yes.
Well, you're saying that not many people know they're suffering. Well, I think
they feel it. They don't have to know it.
Okay, they feel suffering, but they may not say I mean, we do say I have a problem, right? We do say, oh, I have a problem. I'm not happy. So, but we think it's just short-time things and we can just do something about it and then it'll go. But I think if we understand that actually being angry leads to suffering and I do something about my anger, right? In that moment you turn towards Buddha's teachings, and even if you don't know it's Buddhism, it doesn't matter, your psychiatrist tells you, so you're actually practicing Buddhism without knowing. You actually are Buddhist without knowing, right? The moment you turn towards the teachings and you apply them, you take refuge in the Dharma, which means you're a Buddhist. To a certain degree. I mean, I'm being a little loose here about it, but that's really what it means. Okay? So, therefore, what I'm trying to say is, it's not about being Buddhist or not. You can take the bits and pieces about Buddhism you like and just apply them and be a good Jew, be a better Christian, be a better Muslim, be a better atheist, be whatever you want to be, right?
Just be better.
Pardon? Just be better. In the sense of don't do anything that harms you and others in the long term. Okay? So short-term suffering is even all right. We go to a dentist. Short-term suffering for the sake of long-term benefit. So to avoid actions that harm ourselves and others in the long term. Okay.
I think there's I want to go a little back at the eye and ask something. Nothing can be born out of nothing. I mean, something cannot be born out of nothing.
That's right.
So if I have a feeling of this eye, it has to have
A basis, yes, a conventional eye.
On the one hand, it does not exist.
It does exist, just not inherently.
Yeah. I mean, the feeling, the deluded eye exists.
Yes.
Though it has nothing in concrete, it's like it pops up without no reason, because the reason doesn't. The conditions are not real. But the feeling of the eye is real.
Look, you're right that it's impossible to have something out of nothing.
Yes.
Okay. There is a conventional eye.
Yeah, that's not.
And I perceive my mind takes to mind the conventional eye, but adds to it.
Yes.
It perceives it as inherently
The
existent.
addition
Yes.
has to have the conditions also.
Yes, of course, everything has causes. Like the mind has causes and conditions, except for the inherent I, that doesn't have causes and conditions because it doesn't exist.
Where are the additions? I mean, I'm looking for the factor that makes the illusion seem real.
Ah, what makes it real is
For
your
me,
belief.
It's deluded, but for me it's real. Though it has not real conditions because it doesn't exist.
I mean, the mind, of course, that misperceives it is there.
Yes.
That exists. But the object conventionally exists. But the object, which is the inherent I, an inherent I doesn't exist. An inherently existent I doesn't exist, right?
The addition-
Why do I believe in it? Because it appears to my mind. For instance,
But what are the conditions for this appearance?
where does it all come from? Where did it all start? The previous moment. The previous moment and the previous moment. Because we're used to it. We have this, it automatically,
Samskara, you mean?
samskara, no. What is samskara? I don't know.
Samskara.
What is samskara? Samsara.
No.
What is samskara?
Sankara.
Samkara. What is, I know samsara.
Sankara.
What is samskara? Can you translate it to English?
Yeah, no, the imprints or the...
It's samsara.
Samsara?
Samsara.
It's a Theravada
Skanda number
term.
4.
Oh, the skandhas, the 5 skandhas.
Fourth skanda of the 5.
Which one is the 4th? Can you, the word I heard, can you explain the meaning? Can you give me the meaning?
It's like the repetition, something that is glued to the process and makes it repeat again and again.
The samskara?
So, yeah.
What is samskara?
I don't know, it's a Theravada terms. I don't know.
I don't know this term. Not samsara, samskara.
That's the same.
Habituation?
Yes, the patterns that are going on.
Attachment?
Yeah.
Our conditioned mind. Our mind is a conditioned mind. So mind and conditioned mind are the same thing. Should I Google it? I don't know what samskara.
Your name is Google.
What is samskara? Samskara. Our delusions and attachment. What does it mean? Oh, yeah. Samskara are mental impressions, recollections, or psychological. The imprints.
Yeah.
It's one of the 4 aggregates. One of the 5 aggregates. It's part of them.
Yeah.
Like in the Tibetan tradition, they talk about compositional factor that includes anger, love, compassion, any mental factor that is not feeling and discrimination, and it also includes the imprints. It's not just the imprints. Okay, great. Thank you. Is it because of imprints? Yes, I agree. Yes, exactly. It's because, you see, to give you another example, I become angry today because I've left the habit, the imprint for becoming angry. So, let's say, for instance, yesterday I was angry, and because I was yesterday angry, I've left an imprint in the mind that when the circumstances arise, today I get angry again.
This is the addition that gives rise to the I, which is the
It doesn't give rise to the I. It gives rise to the mind that misperceives the I. Exactly. So, because of imprint, since beginningless time,